Hello, my no matter what friends. Hey, before we dive in today, did you know that I send an email out every Monday morning? And I know right off the bat, that sounds horrible. Like, I don't want another email in my inbox on Monday morning. But let me tell you why you might want it. All it has is a piece of scripture, a quote from a Christian author or thought leader, and then a question for you. And I write a little bit of commentary after each one. You can read it while you're waiting for your coffee to brew on Monday morning. And it's just designed to kind of help you kickstart your week with intentionality. Thinking about the Lord, what he's doing in your life that week, maybe if there are things that you need to surrender to him. But over 3,000 people get this email every Monday morning, and every single week, more and more people are subscribing. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew about it. So you can go to hannaseymour.com and it will be at the top of that website, or probably if you just Google search Hanna Seymour, it's called The Weekly One. So search Hanna Seymour, The Weekly One, and it'll pop up on my website. Actually, if you go to the Weekly One tab, you can read a previous Weekly One email if you want to get a sample before you submit your email. But guess what? Submit your email, try it out. And if you don't like it, if you just can't stand one more email in your inbox, unsubscribe. It's also a podcast and you can listen to it. And it's more like a 6-minute guided reflection and prayer time with those 3 elements. So, okay, we got to move on to our guest today. Lucas LeFevre is my guy on No Matter What today. He does something called holy work journaling. And we are going to talk about how journaling literally changed his life. And this led him on a path to create this product and this experience that other people engage in. We talk about this in the interview, but there are people who are in therapy and then also doing his holy work journaling. And their therapist will comment that they've seen more growth in their client since starting holy work journaling than they have in like 3 years that they've been seeing them in their therapy room. So it's wild. We talk about both science and the spiritual component behind journaling. And I admit right off the bat to him, he already knows this, that I hate journaling. I hate it. And so I go into the conversation saying, Lucas, convince me to start journaling. So let's see if he can convince you to start journaling. Well, Lucas, I am pumped to have you on No Matter What.
Me too.
Okay, so we know we're talking about holy work journaling. I've already confessed that I am an anti-journaler, so we are going to dive into that. I am truly hoping, like open to, I want you to convince me to start journaling tomorrow.
Okay.
So that's where we're headed.
All right. Great.
And I know that your journey with journaling, of course, we all have origin stories, but you've got a pretty great origin story. So take us there. How you didn't come out of the womb journaling.
No. No, not at all. Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. And it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you and jump into this. I did not, I'm a guy. I was a creative and I was in bands. And so I like to write songs and things like that early on. But I wouldn't consider myself a journaler. I'm like anybody else growing up, where I had people that would give me a journal and I had a few pages and then it would just, fizzle off and all that kind of stuff. But for me, it was 2010. I was about 29 or 30 years old and we had moved down here to Tennessee. I started working for Dave Ramsey as a designer around that time. And so we left everybody we knew up in Illinois, came down here. I started that job and I had been married for 8-ish years, 8 or 9 years. We got married in 2001 to my wife, Mandy. And throughout that period, I would call myself a Christian, but I wasn't living like it. And was kind of I'd go to church on Sunday, but then I had my band and I had, all this other stuff going on. And I was a very discontent person throughout the first parts of Mandy and I's marriage together and throughout college before we got married. I had addictions and I can go into details on that if you'd like to, but it was just a discontented sort of normal looking life without purpose. And I thought the band was going to take off. And so I thought that was the thing that was going to save me. And I'm actually grateful it didn't take off because that would have been a nightmare. But 2010, we moved down here to Tennessee and we leave everybody we know. And I had not really dealt with any of those addictions. I hadn't really dealt with my thought patterns. I hadn't really dealt with any of those things. And we moved down here. I started working for Dave, and it was great. And about a year in, I thought, okay, we moved across the country. I got this great job. My wife's able to stay home. We got 2 kids. I just start feeling this discontentment thing again. And not that it entirely went away. It was just, when you're in a big move situation, everything's different. So it's like a year of, craziness. And then everything sort of starts to calm down. And I just start to feel that discontent feeling again. And I'm like, what is the problem? Like, why am I never happy? Why am I not content? And I just start to get pretty, frustrated with that. And I start to think, the only constant in my life throughout this last 10 years is, instead of looking back here, I start to go, it must be Mandy. She must be the problem.
And, I thought you were going to say the only constant's me. No. We love to look out.
That would be the wise choice. And I eventually got there. But at the beginning, I was like, she was my high school sweetheart. We started passing notes in 7th grade. And I just started to have these thoughts that were ruminating, like, you didn't know what you were doing. You got married too young. You didn't know any better, blah, 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 blah. That's why you're not happy. She's the problem.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, I didn't have a daily practice. I wasn't going to counseling, none of those things. So I'm just living with these thoughts going around and around in my head. And it was 2009. And
are y'all even in church in this season?
Yeah, we're going.
Like so you're hearing some truth. You're hearing some truth.
Yeah, and I'm working at Ramsey, and there's great stuff all around Ramsey. But it was like, I'm playing the game, performing externally, but internally I'm like, it's just, and I start to blame her, and I start to let those thoughts kind of go crazy, and start to just let them play out. Like, I don't even know what to say about that. Like, I just kept thinking, it's just because we got married too long, and I married the wrong person, and so I was out on a run in April of 2010. I know that because I didn't run that much, but I was training for the Nashville Half Marathon that year. So that's why that date sticks in my brain. And I was out on a run, and I was just, I don't know what it was about this day, but I was just in a really down spot. And I'm running, and I'm starting to play out, I can't do this anymore. I can't shove down these weird feelings I have. The only thoughts that I knew was like, maybe I should just do something else. And I started to think, well, maybe I got to get a divorce. It started to just really play out in my brain. And on this run, I'm thinking, okay, what will happen to the kids? Will she move back to Illinois? Will I be able to stay in Tennessee? I'm just really playing this out.
Yeah.
And I start crying because I'm like, that's a lot. I'm tired of this feeling, but I have to do something. I was just at that point where you're like sick and tired of being sick and tired. So you got to just do something. Divorce was the thing that was on my brain. Mandy must be the problem. And as these thoughts are just like building, I'm running, I'm crying, I'm running, I'm crying. This is the weird part that I don't have an explanation for other than God. Out of nowhere, it's like something just sliced through all those thoughts. And it was the phrase, I mean, it's a cliche phrase because we all say it so much, but out of nowhere, it was like a punch in the face. Be still and know that I'm God.
Ooh.
And it was like, I wasn't reading my Bible all the time. I wasn't. I grew up in church, but it wasn't Luke was not seeking God in his life. But this thought just came out of nowhere. And I sometimes describe it like it felt like a giant thumb on my whole body. I don't know why I describe it, but it just felt like that. And I even get little chills when I think about it. And that doesn't happen to me all the time. It never had happened before. But it was just this thought that sliced through those things. And I kept running, and I finished my run. And I just, the last bit of the run, I was just like, God, was that you? Was this what other people experience sometimes? Like, it was just so different than what my brain had been doing. And as I got home, Mandy wasn't home. I walked through the door, and I just thought, okay, if that was God, then that means there's something real here, because I didn't invent what just happened. So if that's real, okay, maybe some of what's in the Bible must be true. And I thought of that verse that was, the truth will set you free. And I didn't even know it was Jesus who said that, or I didn't know any. I just remember that phrase. And so I just had this, I call it a little poll, and I was like, I just need to write Mandy a letter and tell her everything.
Wow.
And just tell the truth. If I'm willing to risk getting a divorce, I might as well risk telling the truth of how I'm feeling. And so I sat at this little desk that we had in the house we were in at that point, and I just sat down and I started writing, and I told her everything. I like the doubts I was having, about the addictions, about stuff I'm not going to say on a podcast, about my childhood, like all of these things. I was just like, I'm tired of hiding. This is me. This is the truth. And something weird happened as I wrote those thoughts down. As I saw them on the page, and I didn't even know this was happening at the time, but now looking back, as I saw those thoughts on the page, I was just like, man, these thoughts are rough. I wonder if they're not true. Like, it was thoughts I was having, but as I was writing them, I'm like, even though I'm having them, I wonder if these thoughts that I feel like are really real and really true, I wonder if they're not. And so I thought, okay, I just wrote it all out. And at the end I wrote, I've been having all these thoughts. This is the truth of what I'm thinking and feeling. But I think a bunch of these thoughts are distorted, and I'm willing to fight for our marriage if you are. And then she got home, and I was like, hey, I need to talk to you. And I read her this letter. And at the end, I said that I'm willing to fight for this if you are. I think what's going on up here is distorted. And so then we started going to counseling. We started working through stuff. And thankfully, this is where she says the Holy Spirit speaks through her, where she said, yeah, I'm in to fight versus just being angry and running off, you know?
Totally.
But how that ties to journaling is what happened over the next couple of weeks. I was just like, oh my gosh, telling Mandy the truth in these thoughts as I wrote them down, I thought was going to hurt our marriage and destroy it, but actually it started the healing process. I wonder if I started doing that with God. And so I just said, I got nothing to offer you. I'm just going to get up a little early, and I'm going to read. I don't even know what to read, but I'll read a chapter of the Bible, and I'm just going to start writing my honest thoughts about it and what I'm thinking and feeling. And so I started doing that, got up a little early, read a chapter of the Bible. And like I said, I grew up in a little Christian school, a little Christian home, but I didn't even know before that Matthew, Mark, and Luke and John were the same story told by different authors until I started reading it myself, you know?
Yeah.
And so I wrote about that. Like, how come I didn't learn that? I just started being honest in these journals with God. And I did it a few times a week, and then I did it every day of the week. And then all of a sudden a year went by, and 2 years went by, and 3 years went by, and 5 years went by before I even said any of that story out loud to anyone except Mandy. I just was living and doing that every day. And I looked up 5 years later, and Mandy and I were in the best place we'd ever been. We had paid off all of our debt. I had gotten a bunch of promotions at work. I was the healthiest mentally that I'd ever been.
Wow.
And people would come to me with problems. I was leading a team by then, which was a shock to me. And people would come to me with problems. I'm like, hey, man, so get up tomorrow and get a journal and just write out everything you're actually thinking and feeling. Don't edit yourself. Don't judge what you're writing. Just let it out. You can burn it afterwards if you don't like it, or you don't want anybody to find it. And they'd come back the next day and they'd be like, hey, I did that thing you said, and it really helped. And I'm like,
it actually worked.
I know. And so I just sort of became known as the journaling guy around there, around Dave Ramsey's company for a while. And because I was always talking about it after that 5-year period, and it wasn't like a switch flipped. I just slowly would start bringing it up. And I never thought that I'd be the journaling guy, but it was just like,
evangelizing journaling.
Like it changed my life. And really, the trick is I set aside time every day to seek God and talk to him.
Yeah.
Now, the science I've learned over the last 10 years is that if you just write out your thoughts on a piece of paper, it's labeling all of this random stuff in your brain, and your brain then starts to make sense of it. And that's why you feel more clarity. But the scientific benefits and connecting with God each day transform my life. And I'm just like, it's not terribly complicated. It's just, we don't do it. It's like working out. It's just a workout for your brain, you know? So that's short story long story short.
Yeah. Like thinking back to the beginning of your story as I was listening, I just thought, man, most often when we find ourselves in season of discontentment or that's the best word I can think of.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there can be brokenness and loss and hurt and grief and pain because of other things going on. But when it's like everything, there's nothing major happening and we're unhappy, it's really easy to expect our external situation to be what's going to make us happy or not make us happy. And so it's like, well, if the band just works out, that's going to give me my purpose. If I get the job and we start having kids, once those things, it's always once this happens, then I'm going to be good. And I think so much of maturity is realizing, and awareness is realizing it kind of doesn't matter what's going on around me.
Yeah.
My self-worth, my purpose, my value, my outlook on life really is an internal issue. Like anything could be happening externally. And
that's a great point.
So I love this because when I think about the habit of journaling, that's technically an external practice. It's a very internal process. Why do you think, I hear you saying, I wrote down just literally whatever I was thinking, just telling God whatever. Okay, so 2 questions. 1, how is that different from prayer, or is it? And 2, why do you think we're so scared or hesitant to write down everything that we could ever be thinking or feeling, specifically like to God or, in a handwritten conversation to God, when like he already knows it all?
Yeah, right. The first question you said is, how is it different than prayer? I don't necessarily think it is. I do, and I don't have data on this, but I do think our prayers are, I have yet to find very many people who are actually sitting there for 10 or 15 minutes and actually praying.
Totally.
So I know I didn't. It'd be like, oh God, help me through this. A little under the breath prayer, or God, give me wisdom, or I need some money, or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So what this does is, if you choose to act like it's a prayer, and some people just journal out their thoughts and it's not necessarily a prayer. In my practice, in my own life, mine are prayers, and it's just me talking to God. So I don't think it's different. I just think this gives you a practice to slow your brain down and write out what you're actually thinking and want to pray about, versus it's one thing, especially for a new Christian, to have a conversation like this with another person. Like you and I are kind of bouncing back and forth, and you ask a question and I respond, and we're really into this. If there's a new believer who's really like, I don't even know if I believe in God or any of these things, it feels like a one-way conversation. And then you get distracted by the dog barking or somebody walking by or your phone buzzing. And what the journaling does is it gives you a thing to focus on. And you can just be right there and be like, God, I don't know what I'm doing today, and I feel really anxious about XYZ. You're actually writing it, versus, for me anyway, when I'm praying, I'm like, oh God, I really need your help here, and I'm trying to seek you. And then bzz, bzz, okay, and what was I thinking about? And it ends up being like a sentence or two and really fragmented. And the journaling gives you a focused thing to do. And I've just found that to be extremely helpful for myself and many others. The second part of the question that you asked was, why are people afraid to put those thoughts on paper? Shame. We think it, and we have a lot of thoughts in our brain. And if I write that down, it makes it seem more real. And to your, to your statement about, well, God knows it already. I know, but if I don't actually say it out loud, it feels like it's just a thought.
Still hidden in the dark a little bit. Is there some science about, like, when we actually write something down and we see it with our eyes, like we relate to that differently than when it's just rattling up here? There's
2 things. The first one, there's a doctor, James Pennebaker, who wrote a book called Opening Up by Writing It Down. So in the 80s, he did a ton of research on what he calls expressive writing, and tons of research on it. And when you write down your honest thoughts and feelings and you ask your editor, is what he calls it, to leave you alone for a while. Okay. So meaning like, all right, I'm going to write this, but geez, I shouldn't say that out loud. And,
right.
Say it's like something about your parents or a hurt you've had in the past or some kind of trauma. When you write those things down, and his protocol is for 15 minutes for 4 days in a row. Like if you have a traumatic experience that you feel like is just constantly holding you back, go write about that for 4 days in a row for 15 minutes without stopping, and do not edit yourself.
Okay.
The people who did that in his tests had, no joke, like 50% less doctor visits, better emotional health. They healed. There's even some weird studies out there about people who did that with cuts on their bodies. Those cuts healed faster. It's weird.
Whoa.
Yeah. I haven't deep studied those, but I have deep studied the traumatic one and the 50% drop in doctor visits. And it's all documented in his book, Opening Up by Writing It Down. So that's the science behind that. There is some other studies on what happens when you, like, we think as a human, we think in pictures and blips and feelings and a song lyric and I'm hungry and whatever. It's not like you think, okay, now I'm sitting here and I am hungry and now I'm going to write the story about being hungry. Your brain is firing in a lot of different ways, a lot of different times.
Yeah.
When you write that down, if I just sat down here and wrote, all right, it's 12:57 p.m. I'm talking with Hanna Seymour. I'm not that hungry. I ate my lunch earlier. If I just said exactly what was going on, what I was anxious about, what I was worried about for the rest of the day, what happens is your brain starts to create neural pathways that start to create some kind of story, some kind of narrative. You're forcing your brain to make a story, because when you write it down, you're going from left to right. When we read a book, we're going from left to right. When we watch a movie, it's from beginning to end. Writing down all those thoughts starts to give your brain a narrative to follow and start to help you make meaning and make sense of it. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
It kind of reminds me, I read some stuff about when you're helping kids fall asleep. I've got an 8, 6, and 4-year-old, and all of them at different times, like just want me or Tyler, my husband, to, sit beside them in bed and just stay with them until they're having a hard time winding down. And I read about how so 2 things. One, the first one was just helping them, like you're narrating it and they can fill in if they want, but kind of just telling them about their day. And it's letting their brain relive their day. And then you're like, and then you fell asleep. And that like literally helps their brain just kind of, it's like, oh, we just wrote that story and now it's, And then similar but different, I was reading something about how like teaching your kids empathy and empathy and resilience, but telling them stories about times where you had to overcome something. There was an obstacle in your day, a complication, a conflict, whatever. And you are kind of telling them that story and they're just getting to imagine through you, like, oh, that's how mom dealt with that. And that just through that storytelling, their brain kind of learns like, oh, the next time something like that happens to me, I could respond like that. Or mom said she responded in a way that she regrets. Like it's interesting how storytelling, but to your point, like our brains have been designed to have these neural pathways. And so you can
change them.
Do things that kind of shape and mold. Okay. I want to talk a little bit more science, and then I want to jump into like the spiritual. This is so my wheelhouse. I recently wrote a book called Everyday Spiritual Habits. And I took the science of habit formation and then applied it to the practice of 7 different spiritual disciplines. But I kind of had this moment when I was in seminary. I was, of course, reading these spiritual formation texts and spiritual discipline texts. And then in my personal life, I was geeking out over habit formation books and rethinking through different, like not spiritual areas of my life, like fitness, nutrition. And then was like, wait a second, these marry so well together. Why are we not talking about this?
Yeah.
And I do feel like journaling is kind of like a very easy example of both of those things. Like we've got a lot of science about what journaling can do for you. But journaling is included in several spiritual discipline books.
Yeah.
Jesus didn't journal, to my knowledge. And so that's where, like, I like to use a more limited, like, let's use disciplines we see in the Bible, but I don't care. If it's all into the Lord, it's all holy, right? So anything can be a faith habit or a spiritual habit. I think I've read from you somewhere that your brain, or maybe you just said this earlier, your brain doesn't sort beliefs into true and false.
Yeah.
And I guess you kind of alluded to that in your story. Like you realized, wait a second, I'm writing down a bunch of things that it makes me think of the Brene Brown, the story I'm telling myself is.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that it's
doesn't mean it's true
reality.
Yeah.
But this is a story I'm telling myself. So how does journaling, if we don't sort things into true and false, then how does journaling help us?
Yeah. Good question. The simplest way that I say this all the time, and it drives my kids crazy, is because I say your brain does what you tell it. It's as simple as that. So if you tell it, we're pretty anxious about the future, your brain's like, oh, okay, so we're going to find some ways to be anxious about the future. Your brain doesn't really care what you think. What it's trying to do is keep you safe and then alive. And so if you think something new, it's like, whoa, that feels new. I don't want to do that. That's why we have anxious thoughts about trying something new or going to the gym for the first time. You're like, I feel a lot of resistance to that or whatever. It's because your brain's like, oh, this is new and uncomfortable. I don't like it. My job is to keep you safe. So your brain does what you tell it. So if you keep telling it one thing, it's going to believe those things. If you keep telling it another thing, it's going to believe those things. It doesn't really care. It's like a muscle. So if I work out my arms, great. They're going to get stronger. If I don't, they're not. They don't have really an opinion about whether you do or don't. So that's part one. How does journaling help you define what's true or not? It's not only about the unedited thoughts that you throw out. So the practice that I lead people through we want to calm our nervous system so that our heart and soul has a place to let us know what it's really thinking and where we need some help. So if I was with you, guiding you through a half-hour session, we would start with a little 30 to 45 second little meditation, which is just, I know Christians sometimes get uncomfortable with that word, but it's not. It's like, hey, you were created for a purpose, and we're going to close your eyes, and we just want to let the tension go out of your shoulders. And so we spend about 30 to 45 seconds there. And then we just say, now we're going to sit in silence for a minute. And we sit in silence for a minute, and we just say, I'm here. And if your brain starts to go off, just bring it back to your breathing and just say, I'm here again. Then after that, we spend 2 minutes writing 4 things you're grateful for from the last 24 hours.
Okay.
Not just, hey, name some things you're grateful for. No, from the last 24 hours, what were 4 moments you're grateful for? And it just starts to help you slow down and be like, oh man, my daughter got these new squishy toys she loves, and she just kept hitting them with me yesterday. She kept hitting me with them yesterday. And she was having such a good time, and I was acting like it hurt really bad. And man, I was just grateful for that. And so we just write 3 or 4 of those moments down.
Yeah.
Then 10 minutes of that unedited journaling. We're just going to write everything out. I don't care what it is. I'm not going to judge it. You don't have to show me. We can burn it afterwards. You don't have to show anybody. What you're doing is you're giving all of those thoughts a place to go.
And like, do you have a beginning prompt for that? Because I would imagine sitting, and I've done I've done lots of free write exercises as a writer. But sometimes it's hard, especially I had to go to therapy in my 20s just to learn how to identify my feelings. So like the idea of like, just write whatever you want, whatever's in your brain for 10 minutes. I'd be like, I don't know. That's probably what I'd start with. I don't know what's in my brain. I don't know what I'm thinking or feeling.
That's it. That's where you would start, right there.
Okay.
I don't know what's in my brain. Luke's telling me to do this, and I think it's kind of stupid, and I've never liked journaling in the first place, and I don't really know if I believe him. Is this actually helping? I'd rather be doing something else. Get it out.
Okay, literally.
Do
whatever comes out.
Whatever's like, because that's what the key is there, is to recognize what you are actually thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is what you're thinking. And most of the time we edit that. Well, Luke might be sad if he knew that I was really thinking that. I don't care.
Right.
I don't care. Like,
right.
You just got to get it.
Thinking.
You just got to get it out.
Yeah.
So in about 5 or 6 minutes in, you get through what I call, that's the epidermis layer, the skin layer stuff.
Okay.
And eventually you're like, well, I'm writing. Man, what was that thing my husband said to me yesterday? That was kind of annoying. So about 5 or 6 minutes, and not every time, you get to a deeper something and you just start writing about it, wherever it goes. And you do that for 10 minutes. Do not lift your pen. Do not worry about spelling or grammar. Ask your editor to leave you alone. You can burn it afterwards. After the 10 minutes, then I give a little prompt. So today's prompt, let's see, was we've been spending some time recognizing signals, the places where your body, your emotions, and your spirit have been trying to get your attention. So so that was like the intro. And then today's prompt was, there's rarely a single moment when stress takes over your life. It usually builds slowly. One more responsibility, one more person to manage, one more thing to say yes to when your body is screaming no. And before long, you're so used to carrying the weight that you forget it's even there. You stop noticing headaches. You stop noticing tight chest and the dread that comes on Sundays. Your body has been keeping score. Today is about slowing down long enough to read what it's been writing. So consider the physical, emotional, and spiritual signal that has been loudest in your life recently. Today, write about when you think that started and what was going on in your life then. Mm-hmm. And so if I would have just started with that question or that statement, you're like, I don't know. I'm hungry or my foot hurts or whatever. But after writing for 10 minutes and 4 things you're grateful for and a minute of silence, you're ready to write honestly about that prompt.
Yeah.
So, but then I don't give another 10 minutes. I just give 2. So then you just start, man, it really started. I guess that my tightness in my chest started when so-and-so said X and I'm worried about this thing. And that was just like 2 weeks ago. And so you just write about it. And then after that, I use Chip Dodd's 8 core feelings as the base. And we put up these 8 core feelings: anger, shame, hurt, fear, guilt, glad, lonely. And I even put some descriptors up there to help people identify which ones might be today. And so it's just the practice of, okay, what am I feeling today? Well, I'm angry about this, and I'm feeling lonely about this, or I'm feeling really glad about this. And I just give them 2 minutes just to acknowledge the feelings. And then at the very end, we say, okay, God, in light of everything I just wrote, what do you want to say to me? And then we sit in silence for 2 minutes and you just listen. Yeah. And if you kind of hear something or a lyric comes in your head, I just encourage people to believe it's God and write it down. Like, well, that might just be me. Yeah, maybe. Or it might be God.
Yeah.
But if you do this for a month, you'll start to be able to discern the difference between those two.
Yeah.
And so deciphering between what's true and false and not true, you start, as you go through that process, to start to recognize what is the editor, which is I call it the editor. It's the person that says you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're failing, you're miserable. Okay, that's not true. We might have some things we need to work on, but you're not a horrible person. And so at the very, very end, I then say, okay, based off of what you wrote, the feelings you acknowledged, the thoughts you noticed, and you're listening, what's one action step you can take today or weight you need to let go of based off this writing? And a lot of times it's, well, I need to stop worrying about the blah, blah, blah. Or, man, I need to get my bills done for this month. It's like, it can turn to very tactical things, but the weight and the overwhelm of all that stuff has released and you can see and be more clear. So as you do that over and over and over again, you start to notice what is the editor, what thoughts are actually helping you or hurting you. And what are we going to do to change those things? What action can you take?
Yeah. So I was kind of laughing, and not in like a laugh at way, but I'm looking at your website and I'm reading these testimonials and of people being like, I've seen more growth and change in my life doing this than I ever did going to therapy weekly. Or people even saying like, my therapist said she's seen more change in me because of this. And I'm laughing because I'm like, yeah, of course. Because I'm thinking about all of this science of habit formation stuff that I've got rattling around my brain. I'm like, yeah, if you do something consistently every single day for 10 minutes, the compound growth on that and life like trajectory change is massive versus going to therapy for an hour once a week. The seasons that I've gone to therapy, I don't think I ever went once a week. Once every 2 weeks at most, because it was so much. That 60 minutes was so much work for me. And then like I needed more than 6 days to process it. Those are the seasons where, I had a therapist that was always like, you have to write every single day I don't care if it's one thing or 100 things, but like, that is the only way you're going to process this on a daily basis before you come back to me. And, but like, I was still, I think so often we think of journaling as just like, dear diary, this is what I did today. And even when it is a confession, like I have, confession seems so intense. I just mean, you're just laying it all out there. It's whatever's coming to mind, Lord, this is where I am. And, still, I don't know where I'm going with this. My question for you now is, obviously you call this holy work. And as I said before, people do consider journaling a spiritual discipline. So what's your argument for that, Lucas? Okay. Like, why would you say this is holy work? Why would you call it that?
I'll address the therapist thing first.
Yeah.
What I think this does, and I am a huge proponent of therapy and counseling and psychiatry. What this does is it is therapy adjacent and supplemental. So many people have reached out and said, well, my therapist says I need to journal, but I don't know where to start. And I'm like, all right, well, let's start here, And what happens when you go to therapy on Tuesday and then you say you just go on with your life on Wednesday or Thursday, you've got like this little mouse running over here on the wheel. Like, hey, we talked about that thing. And you do process stuff in the background and in your subconscious, of course. But if you spent 12 minutes and just wrote down, man, when my counselor, my therapist, and I were talking about X, it really dug up this. And I don't know how I feel about that. And I think I'm kind of upset about so-and-so because they did that. Your brain starts to go, oh, we're going to create some meaning. We're going to solve some things. And I don't need to rehash all the stuff we talked about already, but that's what happens. And so this really does accelerate therapy. It makes it go faster. And I don't even know if that's the right words to use, but it does accelerate the effectiveness of it. So why is it called holy work?
Yeah.
It's not about the journaling.
You're like, I want you to journal, but it's not about the journaling.
This is about peace and purpose. And a lot of times people do not know what they want, and they don't know where God is pulling them, is the way I say it. And this holy work is actually a path that I started to see with creative people, because I was the chief creative officer at Ramsey. I'm a creative person, and I would see this pattern with so many people, business leaders and creatives, where they would start to want to do something. You probably felt it starting this podcast or writing the book. You get a little pull. Okay, I kind of want to do that. But then the next thing that would happen is you hit a war. So I feel the pull to start this podcast, or maybe it's to adopt a baby or start a business. I don't know what it is, or just to move forward after a death of a loved one or something like that. Immediately, you're going to hit a war. It's fear in your head. It's voices in your head. It's general resistance, like Stephen Pressfield calls it. You just hit those things. Then if you can fight through the war and you define those things and you work through that war, you then hit what I call the wilderness, which is just the work you have to do. You've got to clean up some old messes. You've got to learn some new things. You have to take action. You have to be patient. A lot of people don't ever do those things, and so then they stay stuck. But that is the path. If you follow God pulling on you, you fight through the war, you do the work of the wilderness, you will eventually find some level of peace and purpose. Oh, that's what I want to do. That's where God is pulling me. But if you never slow down enough to actually figure out what's going on up here and what's going on in your soul, you'll just be sleepwalking. It's what I was doing before I told Mandy the truth. I was just sleepwalking through life. Like, okay, this is the next thing I'm going to do. And I kind of want the band to take off. And I mean, that's when we had all our debt. It's how people wander into debt, because we're just sleepwalking. And if you can build that practice of slowing down each day and getting what's in your head out on a page, so your heart and soul and mind can start to make sense of it, you will start to see where God is pulling you. And then you got to go through the holy work of following it. And so that's why I call it holy work, because it's about peace and purpose ultimately. Let me read you something here. This is, I won't say her name because it's somebody in my the holy work community, but she just posted this yesterday. And she put a picture of her journals. And she said, I started journaling on my own last April, 2025. Life was so stressful then. I was a full-time caregiver to a friend with dementia, and things got really intense, and it was no longer safe for him to live with us and in the mountains, because they lived out in the mountains. And I'm a mom of teenagers, and I stopped journaling for a few months. I was in survival mode. Well, on July 11th, I stumbled upon Holy Work and started a free trial of these emails I was sending out. When I finished that, I took this class Luke offered, so on and so forth. And then I couldn't afford the monthly fee. It's not that expensive for anybody listening. I continued by myself every morning.
Way cheaper than regular therapy.
But see, here's the powerful part. I continued by myself every morning. I told a friend about it, and she started doing it, and we would discuss it together. We didn't have access to the daily prompts, so we started using ChatGPT, but they were terrible, and so on and so forth. So today, she wrote this as of yesterday. So she's been doing this kind of thing for 6 months. Today, I started my 4th journal. When I look back at that first one, I was so depressed, numb, lonely, overwhelmed, and terribly sad. I had lost health gains I'd previously had, and was in a dark place of discouragement. I know Luke jokes about burning what we write sometimes, and I get it, but reading my old journals is like seeing old prayers and where God answered them. They're my way of recounting his faithfulness, seeing his guidance in my life. I still have a lot of growing and changing to do, but I've become so many of the things I was writing about and hoping to be. She's become those things. So many dreams, wishes, and hopes have become my reality. The rhythms of my life now reflect who I want to be, and I have new dreams and goals brewing that I want to grow in. I have hope I can live them out if I continue this practice and self-reflection, along with the actual steps of courage to change. So here's to this new notebook, and of me telling myself, look how far you have come. Thanks, God. So it's not about journaling. I could care less about journaling. I want that for people. I want her to look and say, so many of the things I wanted to be, I am now. And journaling is just a tool to unlock it. It's just a tool. So that's why I think this is holy work.
It's a tool that forces you to slow down, probably be in solitude.
Yeah. Shut off your phone.
Even like being if you're journaling in a way that it's prayerful. Okay, we're running out of time, which I'm mad about. But let me at least ask you 2 final questions.
Yeah.
So, because here are my hangups. I have seen so much of the science. I'm like, I know. Yeah. I mean, even when I wrote my chapter on gratitude, there's so much science just about writing 4 things down. But the naming it is good. And so for me, I'm like, it's good enough. But writing it down is better. Writing thank you notes has like profound impacts on your life, not just in like gratitude, like back to less doctor's visits. I mean, it's wild if you handwrite 1 thank you note a week, what it will do to your entire life. Anyway, this is all science. And this is where I just love God, our incredibly intelligent designer, scripture, all these things. It's like, science is proving all of the stuff that scripture tells us is wisdom. And anyway, okay, here are my hangups. Number one.
What are the hangups? Yeah, let's
I abhor physically writing things with a pen on paper. Okay. I hate it. I think my handwriting is so gross and so messy. I can barely read it when I go back. I think my brain is just working faster than my hand. I don't know. I hate handwriting. So, and I know you're going to tell me it has to be on pen and paper, right? None of these stories where people clickety clacking on their computers. So do I have to handwrite?
How about this?
And why? Why?
You don't have to.
Okay. That was unexpected.
Okay. You don't have to. How about you take out your notes app tomorrow?
Okay.
And you go for a 10-minute walk.
Okay.
And you put the voice recorder on, not the voice recorder, but the notes app where you can talk and it transcribes your words.
Yeah. I'm with you.
So not the voice recorder. I want it to transcribe your words. And you go for a walk and you just say, all right, good morning, God. I'm here. I'm just going to start talking to you about what happened yesterday, and I'm going to go for this walk. And Luke says I don't have to be handwriting and in a journal, so I'm just going to talk to you this way. And so here's what's going on, and I'm kind of worried about this, and blah, blah, blah. And just do that for 10 minutes. And then at the end, but don't stop and don't edit yourself.
Yeah. And
try that for a week. You will start to have some of the same effects if you have a hang up. Now, I'm not going to convince you if you just hate writing to do this. You're just going to have that hang up. It is better if you slow down and write in a journal, but I don't want that to be an issue for you. What I want is for you to set aside the 30 minutes and put some silence into your life, and then do the 4 things you're grateful for, and then unedit yourself for 10 minutes. That's part of the key. And then acknowledge your feelings in some sort of system where it's like, okay, no, I'm going to put language to these feelings. I am feeling anger. So writing is better long-term, but something is better than nothing. And so it's not just the 10 minutes, it's the mix of all of these things together. And when you acknowledge your feelings and you write down, I'm feeling angry, I mean, that's the science of effect labeling and stuff like that has had a massive impact on people too. So that's what I would suggest if you just hate writing. I would challenge you that I bet you hating your handwriting is not the only thing you beat up about yourself. So as you write and you just say, I don't care what my damn handwriting looks like. I'm just going to write unfiltered. I don't care if I can't read it in the future. I'm just going to do this because I want to get over the fact that I judge my handwriting or whatever it is. I had a guy come to me the other day that said, I can't journal. I have tons of those moleskin journals. They're brand new sitting on my shelf. I cannot bring myself to mess it up.
Oh, yeah.
That's obviously more of an issue than just that moleskin journal. So we have to lead him into it to allow things to be imperfect in his life. So that's the first part. So what's the next hang up?
That's good. I like that. And I will say, just to for the record, it's not that it's not that I look at my handwriting and feel bad about myself or anything. It's just like I think the process of it, I don't know. I just don't enjoy it. But I also know that there's so much science behind the importance of pen to paper. And I mean, like, so much is happening, even as holding physical books versus reading digitally. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about right now.
Do you enjoy working out?
Yeah, I love working out.
Did you always?
Once I found what I wanted, once I found the right thing for me, I would say yes. Now, there are days that I don't want to, but because it's become such a habit, I do it.
It's the same with this.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, somebody goes to work out, they hate it. It hurts them. Like, this sucks. Like, I'm not enjoying it while I'm in pain and keeled over and I don't feel good, but I'm always happy I did afterwards.
Yeah. So, okay. And then, so I hear you. Your ultimate desire for people is they're doing this for 30 minutes a day. You're starting really with the 10-minute, initial goal, but I'm going to push back and say, what can I do in 2 minutes? Because the science of habit formation talks about, really, to create a sticky habit, BJ Fogg says it needs to be 30 seconds or less. James Clear will say like 2 minutes or less, so I like that. Like, what can we, and that's what I talk a lot about in my book is like, okay, we want a vibrant prayer life, but like, what can you do in 2 minutes today? Let's not worry about, and because again, that compounds over time. So Lucas, what can I do that is meaningful? If I just start my baby seed habits is what I call them in my book. If my seed habit is 2 minutes of journaling tomorrow morning, what's my assignment? And is 2 minutes enough?
I think if you do 2 minutes, you'll feel like it's not enough. So I would love you to do 2 minutes. Just do 2 minutes unedited journaling tomorrow. Set a timer on your phone. Okay. Put 2 minutes and just start writing. All right, I'm going to do this because Luke told me to do it, and I think it's dumb, and I don't want to do it, and blah 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 blah. Do that, but the key is do not judge anything you write for 2 minutes. Give yourself permission to just ask your editor to leave you alone, and I'm just going to write, and I'm going to tell the truth of what I'm thinking and feeling. I don't really care what comes out, and then do it again the next day. Yeah.
Is there like a takeaway question? I free write for 2 minutes. Is there like a takeaway question that I'm supposed to like, or just that's it? I just brain dump and walk.
At the beginning, it's just the brain dump. Don't overcomplicate it. You could ask yourself after you write for the 2 minutes, okay, what do I notice about that writing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, was I really honest? Did I actually say what I was thinking? Like, just spend a second, take a step back, and just be like, all right, what do I notice about this writing? And do that. And then do it for a week. Because the day 5, you won't be writing, oh, I think this is dumb, and Luke told me to do it.
Yeah.
You'll be through all that. Well, I already wrote about that, I know. So by day 5, you'll be like, I don't know what you'll be writing about. But take a second at the end, look at it. What do I notice about this writing?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you just don't, if you're like, I don't want to just free write, start the 2 minutes with today I'm feeling, and then go for 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm. This feels very adjacent. I think it was St. Ignatius.
Yeah.
I'm like 99% sure that's right. But he had like a 5-step, I guess it's a 5-step to prayer. Yeah. But one of the things was kind of identifying, thinking back over the last 24 hours, what were my dominant or prominent emotions? And then, and this is what I really appreciate, because like, that's good. We need to name our feelings. Like I said, I had to go to therapy in my 20s to like learn how to do that. It's important, but to then go, okay, Lord, what do you have to say about that? Or how it's, and Ignatius, I think, even just says like, kind of observe how those feelings relate to your relationship with God. Like, are they pulling you towards him? Are they pulling you away from him? Anyway.
Yeah. He calls it consolation and desolation. So if you like, there's this whole practice of Ignatian discernment is what it's called. And so, all right, when I think about what should I do if I'm making a big decision, all right, when I think about that over the course of time, does that bring me feelings of peace, of life, of love, of joy? Or does it bring me some feelings of, oh man, this is going to be terrible? And does it bring darkness and shame and shrinking down? So that's different. I'm not saying, well, he's not saying if it's hard, I shouldn't do it. That's not it. It's like, okay, if I do this hard thing for the next year, will that bring peace, love, joy, expansion, hope? Or if I do that thing for the next year, am I shrinking? Am I pulling back? Am I squashing? And that's desolation. And those two things help you discern, different directions in your life.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And I think you say something you say a lot is just the practice of this brings clarity, right? It's like we see it, we're processing it more. Journaling is a tool that's just helping you be intentional and intentionally consider what's going on in your life, what's going on in your head and your heart. I think we spend so much time thinking back to the beginning of this conversation, thinking about external circumstances and what we wish we could change, or we're plotting how to strategically change that. And I think there's so much more ability for growth or even just joy and hope and peace if we spent way more time thinking internally. The last thing I want to say, as someone who is a student of scripture and a teacher of the Bible, and I want to devote my life to studying scripture and helping other people understand it. And Howard Hendricks, who is with the Lord now, but he laid a ton of foundational work on helping laymen learn how to study scripture. And one of my favorite quotes that he writes is, the Bible wasn't written to satisfy your curiosity, but to transform you more and more into Christ-likeness. But something that he wrote that surprised me when I first read it was this idea of, we study the scriptures to learn more about God, and that knowledge of God leads us into a greater love of God. But we also do learn about ourselves when we read the scripture. And it's important that we are doing the work outside of just Bible study to understand who we are, who God has made us to be, knowing what we think and we feel, because that impacts our ability really to allow God's transformative work in our hearts. The more I understand what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what I'm fearing, when I open the scriptures, it kind of, for lack of a better word, I think gives the Holy Spirit greater access in my life because I have the awareness. Do you know what I mean? And so
Love it.
I don't know. All of this to say, it's Love it. I'm drinking your Kool-Aid. It's that, and it's that one more thing to add to the morning. So I don't know, maybe I'll try it, Lucas, for 2 minutes.
Yeah. Try it for 2 minutes. The other thing is, this is a healthy practice to start. You, as a very intentional person already, it seems, and I don't know you that well, you might have already a place to reflect and to pray. You might not need this. I don't want this to be yet another thing. I want this to be for the people who, I want this for the people who are stuck, who are restless, who are mentally overwhelmed, who are emotionally numb, and they don't know what to do. This is a practice you can add to your life that will help that calm your nervous system down, calm your brain down, so that you can actually get to some level of clarity to figure out where you want to go. So, I want people to learn to slow down so they can figure out where God is pulling and where they want to go. For people who already have a good habit of that, I don't want you to have another thing. I want people to figure out something when life isn't working for them and they are stuck, restless, overwhelmed. Here's a place to start.
Yeah, that's good. So, well, for our friends listening, if you are thinking, I'm going to try this, I want you guys to DM Lucas and or me and tell us that you're going to try it. You also just need to go follow Lucas on Instagram. I'm telling you, just from like a content creation standpoint, this guy, it's worth studying.
Okay. Well,
truly, no, I'm so serious. Your stuff is so fun and engaging and interesting, but like educational and insightful. And anyway, you're a good follow. So people should, no matter what, they should just go follow you on Instagram. But I want to hear from you guys who are thinking, I'm going to try this practice and let's see what the Lord does. I mean, as you said, I'm like, it's just one of many tools that we have at our disposal. But I think we can all use more tools. And sometimes we use this tool over that tool, but then a different season of life, we'll need that one over this one. And my husband, Tyler, is definitely one of those guys that was at Ramsey when you've been like, you need to journal starting tomorrow. And he has, and there's been seasons of his life where he is, avid about his 10 minutes in the morning. And I can tell the difference. And then there are seasons where he's like, I haven't journaled in a while. And I think that's okay too. Again, it's like using different tools when you need them. Lucas, thank you for your time, for coming on No Matter What, for this work. I know that it's important, and I know that folks are finding so much clarity and contentment and growth and peace through all of it. So
yeah,
I
no, it's
appreciate you.
honor to be here. It's so fun to talk to you about this. And if your listeners do follow me on Instagram, send me a DM that just says the word method, and I'll send you this 10-minute guide that I have available that can help walk you through it. I mean, if they listen to this whole podcast, I think they got a great starting point. But if they want a little guide,
but you got to just have it right there.
Yeah,
I love that.
Right.
I might DM you method. All right. What do you guys think? I'm so curious to hear from you after you listen to this episode. Are you going to start journaling? If you want to learn more, go to holywork.com. The other thing that we need to talk about is my book, Everyday Spiritual Habits. A few things. One, if you have bought and read the book and you loved it, would you please go to Amazon and or Goodreads and leave a review? This helps so much. It just helps the algorithm. And I would just deeply appreciate you if you did that. Number two, some people are starting to plan book clubs or small groups over the summer or even for the fall, and they're going to be going through everyday spiritual habits. If this is you and you want to do this, first of all, I have a small group discussion guide to help with that if you want to do it weekly. But you could even just tell, 10 of your friends, read this book, and in 6 weeks, we're going to meet one time and talk about it. But I am starting to do Zoom calls with some book clubs who have read the book, and it is so fun. So I would love to do that. So if you decide to lead a small group through everyday spiritual habits, or you just do a meet one-time book club type of deal, I would love to hop on a Zoom call and chat with you and your friends about the book, what you thought, how it impacted you. And then the last thing that I need to tell you is I'm also starting to book speaking engagements at churches. I am officially going to be at MomCom in September if you're going to be there. But if you are a part of a women's ministry team at your church, I would love the opportunity to come and serve your women and talk about everyday spiritual habits, about abiding with Christ in the soil that he's planted you in. So hit me up is what I'm saying. You can find me, hannaseymour.com. I think there's a contact form, or just email me hello@hannaseymour.com. I'll get it. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Don't forget what we talked about at the top, the weekly one, if that sounds like an email or another podcast that you might want to get into. So until then, I'll see you guys next week.